Hey guys, Tom Barclay here. I just thought I'd do a video on Jan Vertonghen after his announcement that he will be retiring from football at the end of the season, and what with him being a bit of a Tottenham legend after so many games for the club, I felt it quite fitting to reflect on his career and where he sort of ranks for me amongst Premier League defenders and Tottenham signings. So first of all, he revealed on Instagram that he is going to hang up his boots at the end of the season. He's currently with Anderlecht in his home country of Belgium, where he is the record caps holder. Belgium, 157 caps. He retired from international football, I believe, in 2024, but amazing international career and still going strong. I think 37 he is at the moment, playing for Anderlecht, but he says in his video that he's realised that it's becoming harder and harder, not only in games but in training, to get physically ready for matches and really show the player he wants to be. So the time has basically come. It's been a tough decision, but it's the right decision now. Like all players, the end comes eventually, and this is the time for Vertonghen. He's actually going to be timing it at the same time as his old mucker, Toby Alderweireld, will be retiring from football as well. He's also in Belgium at the moment with Royal Antwerp, and he's going to be hanging up his boots at the end of the season. He's a year younger at 36, but two fabulous defenders for Spurs in their heyday, particularly during the Mauricio Pochettino era. So let's look back on Jan Vertonghen, or Super Jan as he was nicknamed, his time at Spurs. So he signed for Tottenham for about £12 million back in 2012. There was talk at the time that Arsenal wanted him, suggestion that they were going to play him a holding midfielder. But he joined Spurs, where he predominantly played centre-back. He did play left-back at times. He was a really good technical player, quite a rarity actually, particularly back then, of defenders having such great technical ability. His ability to pass the ball and drive forward reminds me actually quite a lot of Mickey van der Ven at the moment. And in fact, I remember looking back at one of the pieces I wrote on Van der Ven when he first signed. I think it might have been from an interview he did with Tottenham's website, because he used to watch Ajax as a kid, where Vertonghen was at before he joined Spurs. He said he used to watch Vertonghen videos, and you can see a similarity in his style, even if Van der Ven's pace is obviously on another level. The way they drive forward with the ball, as Vertonghen did in his heyday, is quite similar. So yeah, he signed for 12 million, which has got to be one of the best bits of business Spurs have done in the Premier League era, to be honest. A fabulous bit of business, because he went on to make 315 appearances for the club, 12 goals. And that summer, actually, when he signed, there was quite a lot of business done by Spurs. This was just when AVB had taken over Andre Villas-Boas. In fact, he only took over the club about a week to 9 days before Vertonghen signed. And him coming through the door was always likely to be back with a few signings. So it was the same summer they signed Hugo Lloris, who went on to be absolute stalwart for the club. Moussa Dembele, a lot of people's, if not favourite player during that era, then or best player, then maybe favourite player. He's definitely absolute cult hero. Is probably almost being unfair on his quality. He was better than that. Cult hero is often for players who are really good, but maybe not like elite, but really loved by fans. Moussa Dembele was an absolute class act. And he signed that summer, as did Gylfi Sigurdsson. Adebayor signed permanently. Clint Dempsey came in as well. So a bit of a mixed bag on that front. But in Lloris, Vertonghen, and Moussa Dembele, three absolute 10 out of 10 signings from Spurs' recruitment point of view. Remember, this is the year actually that the Gareth Bale year, where his final season at Spurs, where he was just unplayable, won games on his own, went on to score 26 goals, led to that massive move to Real Madrid, which probably overshadowed pretty much everything else that happened for Spurs, to the wider world at least, that season. It really was the Gareth Bale year. But looking back, Vertonghen actually scored 6 goals that season, 4 goals in the Premier League. Bear in mind, he only scored 12 for Spurs overall. It really was that season where he showed his sort of goal-scoring prowess. And at times, I think he played quite a lot of left-back that season. I'm trying to remember, this was quite a long time before that I was covering Spurs. In fact, back in 2012, I guess I would have only been working in journalism for about just under 2 years. So I was going to games, but not so much Tottenham at that point. So my memory compared to you guys will be a bit hazier, but I do obviously remember various moments, and reading back through his time, lots of things sort of stuck out, and there were some great memories from his time playing for Tottenham. I think where it really started to click for Vertonghen, it was when Toby Alderweireld signed for the club. They formed this brilliant centre-back partnership, and from a consistency point of view, it feels like that 2015-2016 season, which, yes, when you look back, was the season that obviously Leicester won the title, Spurs really big chance, and they ended up finishing third. But from a defensive point of view, they were excellent that season. 35 goals they conceded in the league was the joint best, or the joint strongest, most formidable defence in the league with Man United. I think Leicester obviously won the title by quite a way in the end, conceded one more goal, and that really speaks to the strength of that back line, which, looking back at that team, to be honest, it was incredible, and it will be forever a bit of a sliding doors moment, an opportunity missed really from Spurs, because when you look at that team, I mean, really at the peak of their powers, a lot of these players, Lloris in goal, Kyle Walker, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Danny Rose at the back, a midfield of Dembele, Dyer, Dele Alli, who was brilliant at the time, Eriksen, fantastic, Sonny and Kane. I mean, that's just unbelievable team. Obviously, people look back and think perhaps the squad wasn't strong enough, and maybe that was the case. The bench was weaker, but what a team that was, and Vertonghen and Alderweireld really were the sort of absolute rocks at the back for that season, which I guess was end up being what might have been from a Spurs perspective. I mean, from a one-off match, I was asking mates of mine what they thought really stood out from Vertonghen's Spurs career. And individual games, there were sort of two matches that really stick out. One was the 2012 win over Man United, because that was the first victory at Old Trafford, I believe, for 23 years. Sir Alex Ferguson was still in charge of United at the time. It was obviously Vertonghen's first season. We thought he scored a goal, but actually it went down as a Johnny Evans' own goal. But he had a massive part in, I think, Spurs' first goal in the game. They ended up winning 3-2, and he ran off with that sort of Superman celebration, which became pretty iconic, I suppose, and the Superman tag that came with him. But the other one that was sort of first to mind, it seems, was the Dortmund game back in 2019. I guess this would be in the first knockout stage, because it was back in February in the Champions League. Spurs won 3-0 at home, and Vertonghen played an absolutely fundamental part to this victory. First of all, he set up Son for the opener in this 3-0 win with a brilliant cross out wide left. It was absolute peach of a delivery, which Son tucked away really nicely. And then Vertonghen went from provider to finisher from a Serge Aurier cross, finished brilliant for 2-0, and Spurs had a fantastic win. And obviously that was the run to the Champions League final under Poch in 2019. And the semi-final, obviously, the second leg is what's most well known from a Spurs point of view, with the Lucas Moura heroics hat-trick there, and which obviously will go down in absolute Spurs folklore and history, that victory. But it was the first leg which Vertonghen might probably remember better. I remember writing a story about this not that long ago, because it was not that long ago he really opened up about this experience and what happened to him afterwards. So if you remember, during that first leg at Spurs, he has this collision between himself, Andre Onana, who's in goal for Ajax, obviously at Man United now, and Toby Alderweireld, and he sort of basically suffers concussion from it. He is past fit as to be able to play in the second leg and then on to the final, but he subsequently has what he described later as basically mental health problems for a number of months after the game, where he said he felt dizziness and headaches for the next 9 months, but also had these issues where he really struggled to go out to restaurants and be in public places, basically places with lots of people. He said it was the final itself, which obviously Spurs lost to Liverpool, was a matter of survival, and he just couldn't wait for it to finish, basically, the moment it kicked off. He said it really affected his performances. He said he looked back at pictures and you can see how sort of down he looks and his eyes look different. He was saying that this in a Dutch podcast, I think it was a Dutch podcast, or maybe a Belgian podcast, not that long ago. just the effect it had, particularly as his contract was running down for Spurs, and how he tried to sort of, in his own words, sort of man up and get through it. But on reflection later on, realised he was really struggling with it. And it could be quite a pivotal moment, really, when people look back at sort of concussion protocols and the way we sort of deal with head injuries, which obviously has changed quite a lot even since then. This moment and the sort of aftermath of Vertonghen's issues that he suffered as a result. But having said that, that wasn't the end of his career at all. So he obviously left Tottenham in 2020, went to Benfica, had a good couple of years there where he won the Portuguese title. To add to the couple of Eredivisie titles he'd won at Ajax. Obviously at Spurs he never ended up winning anything, but he did get to the Champions League final. He was a runner-up in the 2015 League Cup as well. So big part of a really good team that came so close under Poch, as we know. And as I mentioned, absolute stalwart for Belgium. Their most capped ever player. Finished third in the 2018 World Cup and was a big part of that sort of golden generation team with the likes of Vincent Kompany, Alderweireld, Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Axel Witsel, Thibaut Courtois in goal. I mean, the list is pretty endless of top players that Belgium had during this golden generation, which they never really delivered on. And actually, there's a bit of a parallel, I suppose, with Spurs to a certain extent. He's almost like the Nearly man, really, who was a really, really good player who didn't quite get right to the top, at least in the Premier League and on the world stage, but was undoubtedly respected for his talent, for what he brought, his commitment, his all-round game, and beloved by his teammates by all accounts. I mean, where does he rank in terms of Tottenham defenders, Tottenham signings? I mean, Spurs made quite a lot of good signings in that sort of that time. Even that window, as I said, Lloris. Dembele were great signings. Obviously, Son's been unbelievable. He's right up there. I mean, 12 million for a player who played over 300 games and has impact as he did. He's been terrific. I think regarding sort of Spurs defenders, I would have him and Alderweireld are right up there. I think I'd have him above Romero. It's too early to say of Van de Ven, albeit he had a fantastic impact in that first season. But I'd have him above it. I probably wouldn't. For me, he'd probably be just behind Ledley King from that era. I guess, I don't know if Sol Campbell's allowed to be mentioned really for Tottenham fans, but he obviously was a fantastic player before everything that happened with the move. I don't know whether he hit those heights, to be honest, but as much as people wouldn't want to hear that. But I don't think I'd have him up at Ledley King's level, but he was a really, really good player. And kind of similarly on the Premier League, sort of all-time great defenders, he's not up there with Ledley King, with John Terry, with Virgil van Dijk, with Sol Campbell, with Rio Ferdinand, Vidic, Adams, Kompany. He's not at that level, but he's not far behind. I would have kind of equate him a little bit to maybe Jonathan Woodgate, a different kind of defender, obviously. And actually, to be honest, if Woodgate had stayed fit, I think Woodgate would have reached that elite level. He had moments definitely in his brief time at Newcastle and at other clubs and at Leeds, less so at Spurs. Obviously, he won the League Cup. He was a really good player for them, where he sort of suggested that he could really become an unbelievable player. He's not many people who actually moved to Real Madrid, but looking at how his career sort of panned out, he was still a really top player, even with the injuries. And I would sort of have him similarly on a par with that, Vertonghen, that kind of level of sort of not quite the elite of the Premier League in Premier League history, but a very, very good player who, like I said, was an absolutely stellar signing for Tottenham and a big part of their recent history. And it's just a shame, I guess, it wasn't capped with a trophy, but an excellent player who has had amazing longevity. I can't remember the exact figure, but it's something like nearly close to 180 odd games. Obviously all those caps for Belgium, and that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, just best of luck to him and congratulations on his retirement when it comes, and to whatever he does next. But a wonderful player for Spurs. Cheers, guys.